Well, let's stay with the coalition talks. All eyes are on who the ANC will partner with to form a new government as the various talks begin. Let's speak now to some of the ANC's partners. Joining us is Cosatu's Mike Shingange. He's Cosatu's first deputy president. We're also joined in studio by the South African National Civics Organization. The national organizer, Donovan Williams, is the man on your screen. To both of you, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Can I start in studio? Mr. Williams, Sanco, do you have particular preferences for who the ANC should and should not partner with?
Look, I think first we should start with this as Sanco, who is an alliance partner of the ANC, part of the broader Congress alliance, not just to thank the people of South Africa for voting for the peaceful elections and so forth, but I think the people of South Africa also deserve an apology from the broader Congress alliance. I think that's quite important, more than anything else. The ANC is still the largest party in the country, but we cannot dismiss what our people have been saying to us, and we cannot be arrogant about it.
Yeah.
We have not lived up to our people's expectations for quite a while. And we need to accept that and admit that. And I think it's that humility that will inform how you participate in these coalition discussions and what you put together.
Yeah.
Because if you go in to about your preferences, what you would prefer, you are substituting yourself for the people. And a people who have not given any single entity a majority vote, other than they have given that to the ANC since the dawn of democracy. And for the first time, they haven't done that.
Yeah.
And it has been coming. So I think we are heartened by the ANC's response, where they said they have made no red lines, they've not said who they prefer, they've said we're willing to discuss with everybody.
Yeah.
And we think that is a hint of the humility and greater doses of it we need from the ANC. Yeah. Because we must say sorry to the people of South Africa. We've let them down. We have let them down. And they have told us better than they have in previous times. Because they have tried to tell us before, but this time it's resounding.
Yeah.
And if you can't hear them, and you think it's done, you voted, and now it's going to be about what you want and what you prefer, you'll be making a mistake. Our people have told us they don't want this arrogance. We have treated them arrogantly for too long. And if we can't hear them, then we're asking for more of the same, aren't we?
All right. Let's put this to Mr. Shingange from Cosatu. Mike Shingange, good evening to you, sir. In a similar vein, would you want to make a post-election analysis of sorts as to why the ANC finds itself below the 50% mark post an election?
Good evening, Colin, and your viewers. No, I don't think this program is the appropriate one, or the time is now. I think that time is coming. I'm sure, as you will have known and said now in your intro, the political parties, all of them, who themselves have got a responsibility to make a post-election analysis, are currently busy with trying to see how does South Africa move forward? How do we constitute a government post-election?
Yeah.
And I think an individual political party's assessment, including that one of us as an alliance, will have to be done, and that time, I think, will come. So I wouldn't want to use this platform to do that post-analysis of the election.
Do you at least feel the need, much like Sanco is doing here tonight, to offer an apology to the people of South Africa for being let down, because how they see this result is for all of the promises that were not kept, the corruption that has not been dealt with, and all of those? Is there something in Cosatu's heart that says, we've let you down, people of South Africa?
Maybe you must help me, Colin, that in the context of the elections and the outcome, of elections, because we're speaking a few days after the elections. I don't understand what apologies with regard to the post-election analysis that we must give. And I'm not saying this thing because I don't feel that from time to time or at some point there will be a need for one apology for another, but I'm just trying to understand that when South Africans went to vote and exercise their rights in the polls, and they produced the results that they've produced for all political parties in this country, what apologies do they deserve after the elections?
That's an interesting one. All right, before I move on from you then, there is a particular quote that is attributed to a Cosatu leader. I'd like to find out from you, in fact, who these words came from, because it is not stated in this document. However, it does say, and I quote, "The DA is still racist and petty, and it is not different from the National Party. If the ANC is going to engage with the DA regarding coalition, as Cosatu, we are not going to agree to such." Did this come from one of the Cosatu leaders?
I thought you will help me. If I must speak for Cosatu leadership, it can't be anonymous. So when you say to me who this came from, I thought you are quoting some authority. It will be very important for me to speak so that I can also deal with the context of that input. So if you're not sure yourself, I think I will have difficulty to speak to that quotation.
I'll tell you who it is. Edwin
Yes.
Mkize. He is a Cosatu secretary, and I believe that he is stationed in KZN.
Okay. Oh, so that's where it comes from. Okay. Let me put it this way. Firstly, we are not in the business or the position to dictate to political parties, more so that one of the ANC, whose coalition partners they must choose. We're not trying to put the gun in the head of the ANC to that when everything else is considered. They must choose a political party and a coalition partner that they see that they can drive the country forward. However, we must say that the context is important. So, because I will know within what context that Comrade Edwin will have spoken. But one thing I can tell you, and the listeners, is that for us, that which the Democratic Alliance stands for is an emotional thing for workers. The Democratic Alliance have rejected, since its information, even its time when they were still the DP, not the Alliance. They have always rejected that which is in the interest of the workers. Now, workers will tolerate or have tolerated otherwise a slow progress in the transformative agenda of this country. But what workers will always draw the line in terms of the transformative agenda is the reversal, or otherwise the gains of the democracy and the gains of the revolution, which came about as a hard-fought through blood and sweat of the workers. When that is at the brink of being, or be threatened of being reversed, I think workers will be justified to be emotional about that fact. I can just give you 3 examples. When the current Labor Relations Act, as you know it today, when the National Assembly had to pass it around 1995, when Tony Leon was leading the Democratic Party, he marched to Parliament to prevent the National Assembly from passing a clause or including a clause on collective bargaining and a clause on the right to strike. Ourselves as a federation, we had to march to Parliament to strengthen the parliamentarians at the time, to ensure that when the Labor Relations Act is passed by the National Assembly, is included the fact that there's a right to strike, the right to collective bargaining. There was a physical alteration between the leader of the Democratic Party, then Tony Leon, who later became the Democratic Alliance leader, with our then General Secretary Sam Shilowa on this question, because they were opposed to this act. For over decades, we had to fend off attempts to weaken the Labor Relations Act coming from the Democratic Alliance. Some of them, they succeeded a bit. Some of them we succeeded to defend the attempts to reverse the victory of workers on enacting the Liberation Act into law. Recently, I mean, way back in 2013, when we were moving to 2014 elections, the Democratic Alliance saw it fit to march the Cosatu House, if you remember. I'm sure you have been in this field, you know that. That they had an escalation between the masses that were passed and rented to march the Cosatu House in 2013 with the workers who are members of Cosatu. Because the Democratic Alliance saw Cosatu as an enemy of that which they stand for. This year, on the 2nd of May, just a day when workers were celebrating their International Workers' Day, Democratic Alliance woke up in the morning, ambushed the Cosatu House, accusing the Cosatu House of a house from which unemployment comes from.
Yeah.
How on earth workers should not be emotional when they think of such a party representing them in government?
All right. Let's bring it back into studio. Donovan Williams, your organization, by its very nature, is rooted among the people. It's a civics organization or a civic organization. When you hear a statement such as the one from Mr. Shingange that we've just come from an election, it's South Africans who've decided in this way, he's not so sure about why it is that they, as Cosatu, should be offering an apology because it's the people's will. Do you think that, let me not frame that question that way. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, firstly, it's not Mr. Shingange. It's Comrade Shingange to me. This is my friend, this is my comrade, this is our organization, Cosatu. I think it's South Africa's organization as well. When you think of a trade union, as a South African, the first trade union you will think of is Cosatu, even if there are others now. And we must understand that. So when Cosatu says they're speaking on behalf of the working class, and although they're speaking on behalf of those employed, they're really speaking on behalf of the working class, the sentiments and so forth. They may not be able to consult everybody within what is called the working class, but they are truly a representative of the working class. And we cannot deny that. That is why they are our allies. This is why they are, why I would say Comrade Shingange and not Mr. You know? And we are clear as that as Sanco. So it is not for us to dictate to Cosatu or to insist or to even be disappointed. The point is ourselves are heartened by the way the ANC has approached the matter of coalitions. It has said it's open to discuss with all. We are quite disheartened, though, by some of the other parties. You know, Commissioner Shingange raises something very importantly. He speaks about the march to Cosatu House, blaming workers for unemployment by the Democratic Alliance. In May, there's an election on May 29th, and you take the time to do that. You are playing political games and calling it an election campaign. Your objectives are more important than the people's. So much so, just as the election results were coming out, just as we saw those modeling, you know, the model of the CSIR was telling us what was going to happen, and you knew it was going to be a hung parliament. You have the audacity, as the Democratic Alliance, to come out and say, we do not want the EFF. The ANC getting involved with the EFF, which was part of the election campaign, but now they were clear. You cannot be with the EFF. Why would you dictate? Where is this arrogance? South Africans were clear. They punished the ANC for its arrogance. They punished Sanco, Cosatu, and SACP who are supporting the ANC for arrogance. South Africans do not want arrogance. Allow me, you can interrupt me, but allow me to be a little bit longer than this, on this. That coalitions, by their very nature, are not necessarily principled. They are about practical and reasonable, rooted in reality. You look at the best, worst scenario you can get into. Yeah. It's difficult. I don't want to be part of the ANC leadership now. This is difficult. Whatever they do, they're going to be doing something that somebody and a group of people do not want. Already it's beginning. Already people are saying, you can't ally with this, you can't ally with that. But let's be clear. By virtue of the 41% the African National Congress received, you cannot have a coalition without the African National Congress. But what does it do? Is this coalition only about parliament and numbers, and that's the difficulty we have with the coalition discussions. We have to broaden this, colleague. We have to broaden this, because our problems of South Africa are not only rooted in governance. It's not only rooted in parliament or legislatures or even government. Let's take Cape Town, where the Democratic Alliance is in charge, both provincially and locally. Everybody will laud Cape Town that it's such good governance, but has it improved for those in Mitchell's Plain, Bonteheuwel, in Khayelitsha, Langa? When you go to those places, they still look like the 80s. And this tells you we need a broader coalition. And this is what it comes to. The difficulty the ANC has right now, if it sits with the Democratic Alliance and forms a coalition with it, it'll look like it's falling down on, to monopoly capital in our country or to business. So why is the Democratic Alliance the de facto representative of business in our country? Why should that be? Shouldn't our business, our large business, the Johan Ruperts, the Christo Wissers, the Patrice Motsepes, shouldn't they get up and walk to the ANC and walk to government and say, this is what we are going to do to build, to invest in this economy? They are sitting on trillions of rands that they have not invested in this economy. So do not allow parties like the Democratic Alliance to say, doomsday scenario, if you get into bed, and bed, I mean, what horrible imagery are we using? Not even, can we occupy the same house? If you get into bed with the EFF, then business is going to leave. So who's speaking on behalf of business? Is business going to invest in this country?
Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
Mr. Williams, I have to interrupt you now.
No, please do.
We have to move the conversation forward. And I don't want it to be only about the Democratic Alliance.
Sure.
But you use the Western Cape and you use Cape Town. The numbers from 2019, 2024, the Democratic Alliance, only by an inch. It's actually marginal.
Yeah.
They've retained that province with the same 55%. What does that tell you about at least the sections that the poor parts of the Western Cape say are served by that government? Clearly, they've gone out in their numbers to support a party that delivers the services. You, on the other hand, surely you can't claim the same, can you?
No, I think we need to be clear. Let's not talk percentages. Every party in this election shed numbers of voters. Voters didn't turn up. That's the truth. Those are facts. The Democratic Alliance got less votes in this election than the previous one. Those are facts. I'm not making it up. Those are facts. So simply put, you have a situation where right now you have a 41% party which has got less votes and dropped in percentage. But you have a Democratic Alliance, all right, which has dropped in votes, but not necessarily dropped in percentage. That's how the PR system works. More than that, though, you have this 41% party, and this is why we need to be reasonable how we think about this. You have this 41% party, which has to decide how it's going to choose, but has to take it further. So if it goes with the EFF and another smaller party to get over the 50% plus one, right? Why is that a doomsday scenario? How do we make certain that the private sector is able to participate? How do we make certain that the Democratic Alliance is able to participate as an opposition, as opposed to a destructive opposition, which is the difference? I want to add, before you go through, and you must not take away that we must talk about the international perspective on this, because we can't lose sight of that. We're not an islander, South Africa.
If we're going to add the international perspective, then we've got to be very short. Mr. Shingange, you, on the other hand, have to admit or make certain concessions here that the workers have not necessarily gotten a good deal from the ANC government. You have complained over many years about the policies that should have favored workers, that should have been implemented, which are not being implemented by the ANC government. So, should you not be practical when these coalition talks are upon us and say, we need to worry about the jobs situation in the country, worry less about ideology? Who then becomes a better partner for the ANC?
Well, I thought campaigning is done. People have campaigned, the elections are out. So, but let me say that we are being practical as and when an opportunity for us to speak about the coalition discussions arises to us. When we're meeting on our own as the federation leadership, including tomorrow, when an opportunity for us to engage with our alliance partners, we will be practical. It is unfortunate that we can come here as the leadership of alliance to speak about one part, and which is the DA. We don't know what is the purpose of that or the reason for that. That only the DA pops up in this thing of the coalition.
So sway it away. I'd like for you to sway it away from the DA.
Sorry?
I want you to sway it away from the Democratic Alliance. I did say to Donovan, I don't want this to only be about the DA.
Yeah, okay. So here is our issue. I did make a point which coincides with what you are saying, that yes, we would have got a road deal here and as workers, and that we have not hidden. That we have made it public. But it was also true that there are some victories that we have scored or achieved through this democracy as led by the ANC in this country. And we are saying we could have been subjected, Corey, to a slow pace of transformation as we have wanted. But what becomes a big, big thing for us is when there's a clear view that those little advances we have made are on the brink or the faces the real threat of being reversed. And that's why we are saying this coalition partner that you introduced with us has got a track record of over the past 30 years fighting to reverse that which we have scored, including the national minimum wage, which is why they were marching towards Cosatu House, including the current labor relations that's called the regime. We will be very disappointed should they emerge as a favorite of such a coalition, because that we know exactly what it means. That which we thought workers have not achieved, or that which we thought workers are subjected to some unfair treatment, is going to be worse. That's our fear. That's why we raised that point. So, but we agree that majority of the policies that the ANC will have put in place in the past, including the current manifesto that the ANC have gone to the South Africans to canvass for votes for, we're very progressive. It is that which we supported. Of course, there has been an enemy of the ANC in the past, that one of implementing its own policies and its own manifestos. Now that we are in this situation of coalition, it will be better to have a coalition partners who are going to help you to implement your progressive policies that are actually going to address the majority of the previously marginalized South Africans than the previously advantaged people who want to maintain the status quo of the super exploitation and the perpetuate the inequality as we have today here. And I'm sure there are parties out there who can help the ANC to do that, which themselves have got similar policies, if not the same policies. So that's a discussion that, in our view, we will contribute when an opportunity arises to us to make our point of this.
Okay, all right. And I'm glad that we seem to be pacey in our responses as well. Mike Shingange is the first deputy president of Cosatu, and Donovan Williams is the national organizer of Sanco, the South African National Civics Organization. Let's come to you, Mr. Williams. The country, South Africa, does not exist in an island, and by so saying, already the international observers, ratings agencies are opining about who the ANC should partner with, because at the end of the day, bread and butter may be affected if the party chooses the wrong alliance partners. Where's the middle ground?
Look, I think it's what I've alluded to before. But right now, internationally, globally, our problem is, all of us, the whole world's problem is, we have a Western hegemonic powers, which is basically the United States and Europe, who for the first time, since World War II in particular, are scared of being the hegemonic global powers. They are scared of losing that. That's why you can have a situation where in 1 week, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, says to Europe and the United States, if your weapons are used by the Ukrainians and it goes onto Russian soil, we'll take that as an attack on Russia by Europe and the United States. And less than a week later, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, tells the Ukraine, you can use our weapons to fire onto Russian soil. That shows you how insecure the United States has become. And who is South Africa in this, besides being a member of BRICS? If there's a type of government that could possibly be regarded as the United States losing influence and power in our country, the private sector may react. But the balance is, which is what you asked about, the balance is, how do we retain our integrity as a country while still ensuring we satisfy or calm the markets? And that's where our business sector, who is both international and national, need to come to the party. They need to show that they are not scared by whichever form of government, because we have the democratic institutions, we still have the same constitution, we still have the same laws, we still have the same rights. And so therefore, they remain not just intact, they remain confident for the future. The Johan Ruperts, the Patrice Motsepas, the Christo Wissers must stand up and be leaders in this country as well. That's where the balance is. The balance comes from them, and so therefore, even if it's the ANC and the EFF and Al Juma, whatever it is, all right? This is a government that we will keep on their toes, that we will make certain it delivers, that we will not allow for it to be arrogant anymore. We've given that, and whoever it is, it should not matter. The content of the agreements matter, the content of what we do going forward matters, and we want business. This coalition is not restricted to political parties. And thirdly, we want communities, where Sanco is. Yeah. Communities have shown, not just in this election camp, have shown that they can make their voices heard, and we want their voices to be heard, more so in this period and thereafter. So for me, I think this is a good time. Yeah. This is a time for South Africa to really go forward.
Mr. Shingange, you get to tell us how you think an ANC-EFF coalition could make for a good coalition government, given some of the reservations about the EFF's manifesto promises, which many say will not be afforded by the national fiscus.
Okay, maybe before I answer that, by the way, I didn't say the EFF coalition. It's you saying so, so don't put it in my mouth. But before I answer that, you said, Cody, that some of the international forces are jittery, and they are talking about the bread and butter issues that are going to be affected. I think the question that we should ask, including as we deal with the coalition, is whose bread and butter are we talking about? Is the bread and butter of the people who currently don't have bread and butter? Or is the bread of the people whose bread is buttered both sides? That they are worried that they're going to lose one side of the buttered bread. And that's what this discussion is supposed to take us to. It was very funny, Toli, when the results were trickling in, and it was clear that the ANC will fall below 50%. Yeah. That the rand plummeted. The question you should ask, why is that? When the ANC takes a particular radical in the interest of the South African people decisions, the rand, the market are jittery. But the very same ANC, when they lose power, the rand also is worried. Why I'm raising this narrative is that it will be difficult for many, many years to come if South Africa and the leaders of South Africa will always have to act not in the interest of the people supposed to service, but in the interest of the speculations, in the interest of the market, in the interest of the investors, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
The ANC, Colin, has never been reckless on the international front. They have always acted in a responsible manner when it comes to international politics, be it economically and so on and so on. But the ANC is not spared from losing electoral support. It has not helped them. And I'm confident that whichever coalition partner that will go with the ANC, even if it's the EFF, by the way, there's a lot in common when it comes to the foreign policies that the ANC agrees with the EFF. Our stance in BRICS, our stance in Palestine and Israel, our stance in Cuba, our stance in Russia, there's a lot in common. And that what represents this nation that was assisted by the international community during the dark days of apartheid. This nation of Mandela that subscribes to the international law, but also to the international solidarity.
Yeah.
And that understands that we can't stay here in South Africa and eat bread and butter and think that we are free when there are kids and women who have been bombarded in Gaza, and we think that is fine with us. That's not the nation that we have fought for.
All right.
So I think that whichever the coalition partner that the ANC will decide to go with, this issue of the foreign policy also for us as Cosatu is an important fact.
All right.
Because it defines who we are as a revolution in this country.
Okay. All right. Donovan, you have less than a minute. Who is the ideal, or what will be the ideal coalition government for Sanco?
The ideal coalition government for Sanco is a coalition government that puts the people first. Whoever is comprised of it, they should not be thinking sectorally. They should be thinking about all South Africans. They should be making certain our government can work better. They should be making certain our institutions are way more efficient than they have been up to now. We believe the ANC can be able to build that coalition with what they have, and they can extend it to far greater than Parliament. They can extend it to the whole of society. That's what this country needs. It's another 1994, and 1994 was exciting. Let's make this also exciting.
All right. Mike Shingange, you also have less than a minute to give us who you think would make for a good coalition government in South Africa right now.
It's whoever is committed to move the country forward. It's whoever who is committed not to reverse the gain of the revolution. It's whoever who is committed not to continue the status quo that represents and protects those who were previously advantaged at the expense of those who are still seeking to get into the economic mainstream, including getting jobs, including job protections, that the laws of this country must have no eyes, must protect everyone else. That is the coalition pattern that will be good for us as South African, indeed, as Comrade Donovan says, not for us sectorally. We can't stay here and say not only us workers must be served by this thing, but even those businesses, people that today they are claiming that they want policy certainty through the coalition. They never trusted that ANC has got a policy certainty in the past. They kept on demanding a conducive conditions for them to do business. It can't be that today they only want to achieve that through coalition. They must be honest with themselves, the South Africans, that themselves they contributed to the slow growth of the economy in this country because of the investment strike. And we do think that there are people who can invest in this country because they want to resolve the problems of our people, not for their own profit making. So those who want to leave because of the kind of coalition we have is because they've got no interest of the people at heart. But those who have the interest of the population at heart, they will stay in the country and they will invest and the economy will grow.
Mike Shingange, the first Deputy President of Cosatu, thank you very much for your time. Donovan Williams, I want to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Sanco National Organizer.